When you're looking for a newborn photographer, I fully understand that you're going to want to make sure that you found a good one. You're going to want someone who you know you can trust, who's going to handle your baby safely, and who you know is going to capture your baby beautifully, because you're not going to get those first days back. But when you're faced with a huge number of search results on Google when you go to look for newborn photographers, how do you decide which one is the best for you? Well, in this video, I'm going to explain a quick and easy technique you can use to shortlist photographers that you want to find out more about, and then 8 questions you can ask the photographers on your shortlist to find out whether they're the best newborn photographer for you. So before you dive too deep into researching newborn photographers, I recommend you make a really quick shortlist. And the way that I'd make this shortlist is by looking at each photographer's website, looking at their newborn photography portfolio, and deciding whether or not you like the style of their photographs. Why do I recommend you shortlist on style? Well, really, it doesn't matter about anything else, whether they have a studio, whether they come to your home, how much it costs, how long it takes, if you don't like the photographs. So quickly work your way through the different search results that you found in your area and see which photographers' work you like and which work you don't. So now that you've made your short list of photographers, what do you need to know about them so that you can make an informed decision about who you book with? Well, I recommend that there are 8 questions you ask or find the answers to about each photographer. You might do this by emailing them or picking up the phone, or you may be able to find all the answers on their website. So first of all, what training and experience do you have? Now, if you're trusting someone to handle your fragile newborn baby, you want to know that they know what they're doing. So one of the first questions I recommend asking is what training experience the photographer has, and this is particularly important for pose newborn photography, where the photographer is probably going to spend hours handling your baby and putting them into different poses. You want to know that they've got the appropriate training to do this and that they understand how to handle your baby safely. Now, there's no formal qualification that you need to call yourself a newborn photographer. Actually, anyone can call themselves a newborn photographer if they want to. But there are certain things you could look for or ask the photographer about if you want to be sure that what they do is safe. So most photographers will have learned in newborn photography in a combination of different ways. In-person workshops with very experienced photographers, one-to-one mentoring with very experienced photographers, workshops, conferences and events on a larger scale, and also now there's lots of opportunities to learn online. Now what you're probably looking for is that a photographer's done a combination of these different things and has experience of photographing a number of newborn babies. So question 2, how do you create advanced poses? So some newborn photographers will create what we call advanced poses, such as the froggy pose, the potato sack pose, or they might create photographs of your baby on an unusual object or inside an unusual object. You might see things like your baby hanging from a hammock or sitting on the moon, or even on top of something that's important to you, like a guitar or in a motorbike helmet. Now, what's really important to know is that these photographs are not what they seem, and when they're created safely, the photographer actually takes a number of different photographs and blends them together in Photoshop. And that resulting photograph is called a composite. So when you talk to a newborn photographer about these kinds of images, if it's something you want and something that they offer, it's really important to find out how are they creating them. I don't offer these poses myself, but I've put some photographs of the different kinds of things that should be created as a composite here so that you have an idea of the kind of poses that require this specialist skill. Question 3, what age do you photograph new babies at? So every photographer is going to have a preferred age when they like to photograph newborn babies. For pose newborn photographers, this is often within the first 2 weeks of your baby's life. And for lifestyle newborn photographers, the window might be longer. But I recommend talking to each photographer individually, because what you'll probably find is that some pose newborn photographers are happy to photograph slightly older babies, and some lifestyle photographers might have a very tight window. So it's a good question to ask so you know how you'll schedule the shoot, when you should book, it's usually before your baby arrives, and how the timings work. So question 4, where does the shoot take place? Now, when you've just had a baby, one of the most important things you probably want to know is how far am I going to need to travel? Now, what you'll probably find is that most pose newborn photographers have a studio that you'll need to travel to get those kind of shots, and that most lifestyle photographers will come to your home. but it does sometimes vary. So sometimes a photographer who specialises in pose newborn photography will bring a pop-up studio to your house. So just ask the photographer so that you know where they're based, whether you need to travel or they come to you, and you can make an informed decision about whether that's likely to work for your family. So question 5, what's your availability? A very straightforward one, but before you set your heart on working with a particular photographer, it's probably better to know that they have got availability at the time that your baby is due. So most photographers recommend that you book before your baby's born, but if you're contacting them after your baby's born, then that availability is going to be a particularly important issue. Question 6, do you edit images and offer retouching? So taking a great photo with your camera is only part of creating that beautiful image of your baby. Editing and retouching it are what completes it. So when a photographer edits an image, they'll do things like correcting exposure, correcting colour, they might crop it a little bit, and they'll add any other touches that give that photograph their signature look. When we retouch, we're doing things like removing flaky or red skin, things like baby acne, and it's also the stage where a photographer who's creating those advanced poses would make their composite image. So in newborn photography, retouching can make a real difference. Most newborn babies do have very red, patchy, blotchy skin. They often have flaky skin and they might have a little bit of baby acne even in those early weeks. So just a little bit of retouching to remove those elements can make a significant difference to your final photograph. Now, not all photographers will offer editing and retouching, and not all of them will offer it to the same level. So it's worth just asking the photographer what they do. You can probably get some idea of the finish from their portfolio, but having a chat with them about what they do will give you an idea of the kind of final images you're going to receive. And question 7 is, how long do I need to wait after the shoot to see my images? Now, when you've had the shoot, you're going to be excited to see those final photographs. And how long you wait can really vary. So for some photographers it might be a week, and for others it can be up to 4 to 6 weeks after the shoot. Now, the timing may not be important to you, but if you're thinking about using the photographs for birth announcements or thank you cards, then you may not want to wait that long. So finding out beforehand means you're not going to be disappointed at the end. And the last question is, how much does it all cost? So by now you probably have a good idea of how experienced each photographer is and the kind of service you're going to receive from them. But how much does it all cost? And perhaps more importantly, what do you get for that investment? So you'll probably find that photographers have a number of different ways of charging for their services, and you'll find that things like the kind of service they provide and their experience are reflected in the price. So by looking at what you get for your investment and how much it all costs, you can make an informed decision about how much you want to spend and what you expect to receive in return. So to summarise, the 8 questions that I recommend you ask newborn photographers are: what's your training and experience? How do you create advanced poses? At what age do you prefer to photograph newborn babies? Where does the shoot take place? What's your availability? Do you offer editing and retouching? How long do we need to wait to see the images? And how much does it cost, and what do I receive for my investment? I really hope that you found this video useful as you search for a newborn photographer and find the one who's right for your family. If you have any other questions about newborn photography, do let me know in the comments below or send me an email. And if you'd like to find out more about working with me, you can find out more over on my website.